Welcome all to the third presentation of the day. As I mentioned earlier, we are offering SHRM credits for this event. It's available for live centre attendees only, and codes will be sent out later this week, so keep an eye on your emails. For our third session of the day, I am pleased to introduce Toby Harris, Chief Marketing Officer at Filtered, who will be your host for this session. Toby will be interviewing Marcus Robertson, Global Curriculum Lead at the NatWest Group. The discussion will delve into how we contain learning content chaos with content intelligence. And without further ado, I'll pass you over to Toby. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. And thanks for the HR Exchange organisers for having us here. It's a real pleasure to be talking to so many people here about a topic that's so key to our hearts at Filtered and to what our clients like Marcus at NatWest are working on. So I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Filtered, and I've been involved in the business for a long time, working on this challenge of learning content and how to manage what has become almost unmanageable and a real barrier to being effective as L&D organizations. And we're going to tell you the story of how we contain content chaos using content intelligence. But to do so, I'm going to be interviewing one of our early adopters of this technology. So I'm very excited to introduce Marcus Robertson, who's Global Curriculum Lead at NatWest and has been a pioneer in visualizing and understanding and scoping and then introducing our technology into the ecosystem there. So my first question for Marcus is, can you just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your role and the Learning Content Challenge at NatWest. And while I do that, I'm just going to bring up our first polling question, which really is relevant to what Marcus is going to say, which is how happy is your business with the search and content discovery in your learning platform? So while Marcus talks, have a think about it and answer it, and we'll look at the results when he's finished.
Yeah, morning, Toby, and morning to everyone who's out there. Yeah, I'm one of the curriculum leads at NatWest, and my team and I, are responsible for partnering with the business to understand what some of their capability needs are, both for now and for the future, and looking to kind of source, commission, and create the learning to do those solutions. And we're also involved in how do we start to package it and get it out to the learners. Things like our data academy that we've got now. That we've got a number of curriculum leads and teams. My team look after the areas around about data, digital, and cyber. But one of the other areas that I'm involved, because particularly in those areas, there are a lot of providers providing content. I spend a lot of my time working with and partnering with content providers out there, catalog providers, to be able to get that kind of across. Now, the challenges that we face, I don't think, are unique to us, and you kind of highlighted it within your start. There is a mind-blowing amount of content out there. In the exercise we've done, identify we've got somewhere between 250,000 and 300,000 learning assets within the organisation, which causes us some challenges. So that time to curate is a big one as you kind of go through it. Being able to identify what is the most relevant piece of content to meet whatever the business and organisational needs are. We've also got, when you look across that, there's a fair amount of duplication as well. In the way that you buy in content is there. One of the other things we want to do is improve that learner experience as well. So there's a couple of challenges, a couple of things we're moving towards. Like everyone else, we want to improve that learner experience by personalising it for them as much as possible, and we want to help them to be able to identify their skills and knowledges. And I think there's another challenge, which I'll talk on probably a little bit later, which is what we're also seeing is, as well as what I would call traditional learning providers in the marketplace, we're seeing an awful lot of providers who provide us with other services now also providing learning. And the obvious ones sit within tech, so Amazon, Microsoft, Google, but we're also seeing a lot of that with some of our other providers. So we've got providers who provide service for us from a healthcare perspective, and now providing learning across potentially mental health, or menopause, for example, the subjects that are there. So the learning is coming from an awful lot of different places, and that's before you get into the free-to-air content that's out there that people source as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Your IT service providers are going to be making available as part of those contracts pretty large and effective academies, but they're not necessarily coming to the table with the idea that this needs to be integrated into an LMS or an LXP and available to people. So it just creates that whole new layer of complexity, because everyone's got an academy these days, don't they?
Yeah. And it comes in sometimes via other routes as well from a learning perspective. So, it doesn't always necessarily involve a learning discussion. So how do we join those discussions up and kind of go across it? And from a learner perspective, that's just confusing. If I take Python, I think we've got, I think 5 to 6 providers that provide us with learning content. So where do you start? What's most relevant for your role? How do you package it? And that piece that I think is sometimes really important, actually, both to the organisation, but definitely to learners around about accreditation and certification as well. Are we getting those type of outcomes that have relevance both internally and externally?
Yeah, it's such a precious thing. In fact, when someone will talk more about how the skill prioritization process works, when someone says, "Yeah, no, I'm going to actually complete a certification. I'm going to take a course. I'm going to use a few hours to develop my skills in an area the business is focused on." But then to be presented with 3 or 4 different methods and methodologies is really problematic, because then the employee as well as the business is worried. Did they learn the right thing? Have I learned what NatWest wants me to learn?
Yeah, or what they want to do within your career. I think it's also becoming more important, in the environment we're in now, where careers are no longer linear, and therefore reskilling. At some point, most people are going to have to reskill at least once within their career. So therefore, how do you make that decisions, and how do you connect the content to help you go and where you want to go with? So, and we will cover that off as we can go through this as well.
Fantastic. So we've just got the answers just to round off this question to our poll. So the first question, which is, how happy is your business with search and content discovery? And actually, it's interesting. It's not as bad as I would have thought. So that's interesting. What do you think that reflects, Marcus?
I'm not sure. Actually, it kind of crosses. Look, I think people are potentially using they're comfortable with the platforms that they've got. Potentially, it's across a more smaller number of kind of content providers. But if they're getting to the outcome that they want, both from an organisational perspective of a learner, that's a good start for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to move on to the next big question here, which is, if you have all this massive content, how is it that NatWest is prioritizing skills and knowledge areas? What kind of decisions and trade-offs do you need to make to understand what are the top priorities to kind of focus on and manage all of this content?
Yeah, I think there's probably a macro and a micro answer to this, and I think we're very lucky within NatWest in the sense that literally from day one in her first speech as CEO, Alison Rose called out that she wanted NatWest to become a learning organisation. So we've got sponsorship from the top in connection with this, and a real clear idea around about what the areas the organisation wants to focus on. So I think the first piece is you start with your organisational goals, and what they want to focus on, and there's probably within there 3 main areas that we kind of focus on, and it's probably underpinned by a 4th. So the first one's leadership is very key, and probably across all organisations, and we have frameworks within that leadership piece that helps us to be able to do it. It's not my area of expertise, but we've just launched our Thrive Leadership Programme to help leaders focus on the uncertain world in which we operate. Secondly, and these are in no particular order, but risk and compliance is obviously a very key area from a financial institution to make sure that we're managing those risks and compliance issues effectively and efficiently, both for the organisation and for our customers. And then thirdly, what we have got is a series of frameworks. We've got our critical people capability frameworks, which is 35 skill areas that we focus on, and we've been pulled together. We have an in-house behavioural science team who help us to pull those together. So there's a fair bit of research that goes around about that. But at the minute, we're focusing around about 10 of those skills in our Learn for the Future programme. So these are the 10 skills that we've identified and areas that we've identified as being the most important for the organisation going forward in this world. And I think many people out there will be having similar kind of discussions around about things like agile, coaching, communication, digital, data, expertise, and creative thinking, those type of things. So that helps to give us that framework. And the thing that underpins it is, and we were discussing this just slightly offline, where we are at the minute, purpose and climate are really important for all organisations, and that's probably not a separate skill, though there will be skill areas in there, but that's actually now starting to come through into our frameworks. So if you're talking within a digital or data world, you're having an understanding about the impact, about how you deploy is really important for energy use, etc. So they're the areas that are there. We're currently working on pulling together technical skills frameworks as well. I kind of was talking to this about the other day. I think that will probably move from the 35 that we've got as our core and common skill areas up into maybe 200-300. I know some organisations out there maybe even higher than that. So that's the piece that we're working on as we go kind of across that, and that therefore enables us to focus on that those areas and prioritise where we are. There are you talked there around about trade-offs. There are trade-offs around about you start to put those frameworks in place. They don't tend to be standalone. There tends to be crossover. So again, if you talk about leadership and our critical people capabilities, we need leaders to understand the digital and data and how do you interweave that into their programs. So there are some challenges about the connectivity between those frameworks and therefore the content that's going to support them as well. And probably one of the other challenges I mentioned is that absorbability for the learner.
And let's just move on. I think it's fascinating and really useful to hear that you were prioritising as few as 10 priority skill areas across the organisation, as well as the fact that they extend to more than just what we'd see as skills. It's also values as well, which are important. But could you, in the interest of time, could you also tell us about what is the kind of content and technology landscape that you're working in and that you need to filter those skills through to?
Yeah, so and we have a Workday first kind of policy. So Workday is our LMS at the heart of that, and things kind of connecting off that as we could kind of go across it. We also use a platform called Oak for some academy pages that direct people to content as well, and they're kind of focused across skill areas and knowledge areas as you kind of go across. But we also have 11 catalog kind of providers that in there that have got to move that that content, and that's what's probably driving our 250,000 items as across. And I say what we're saying is this very much explosion of learning coming from non-learning areas as well, that's kind of impacting kind of across that. We also have some partnerships, like many organisations will, to provide some of our professional qualifications and our levy-funded programmes in the UK. Across that as well. So there's a number of different factors in there that kind of pull that together, and it's quite a complex perspective. And there's quite an awful lot of content, which is hard it's hard enough for us as learning professionals to navigate. But how do we use those platforms to help our learners to get to what we're looking for?
Awesome. So that's the kind of landscape. So where does filtered content intelligence technology fit in to understand and organise and enhance this learning content? And maybe you wanted to bring up this kind of slide showing how it works.
Yeah, if I just kind of share a slide and around about kind of how I see this kind of working, which is I think there's three areas, and some of them have their own technological kind of part to it. So how do you identify that learning need, both from an organisational perspective, but also from an individual perspective? And I think one of the things, and this is a term I'm using, so I don't know if it's in the pieces, we're seeing quite an awful lot around about skills intelligence now. So, I know a number of the platforms out there, may do some pre-tests, etc., enable someone to understand where they sit and therefore what's the best content and matching their content as you go forward. But internally, what we're also looking to start to do is we're asking our employees to start to register the skills that they have on Workday. So that's starting to enable them and the organisation to understand where they are, and that could be on their current role or on their previous roles, but also starting to think around about where they want to go, and therefore that starts to identify the gap as you kind of go forward on that. Now, I'll come on to content intelligence perspective and piece. Obviously, on the right-hand side there, the goal, as I've talked about before, is around about getting that personalised experience for them. So therefore, there needs to be a platform that enables our learners to connect with the learning, whether that be an LMS or some sort of user experience platform that kind of sits over the top of it. But probably the thing that's key is we've talked about 250, 300 assets. that's really difficult to kind of map towards the skill gaps that you've got. And also, I've got a background of working within a retail experience, and I talk about our shop front and our warehouse, and I think I see content intelligence working in our warehouse to make sure that we've got the right content to supply the user experience. Because the more content you put into that front end, the less likely it's going to come up with a really great outcome. So, content intelligence is enabling us to upload our skills frameworks into the system and to match the content to it, as you kind of go forward on it. And I think that's the piece for me that at early doors I start to see that's going to help us to end up with a better user experience on the platform, but also learn into that better personalized content if you match it with the skills intelligence element of it.
And I guess to think about what people might be thinking and watching this, if you have a platform like Workday, which has a skills cloud built in and has people have the ability to self-rate against skills and to kind of map which is an exercise you're doing, why do you need something additional? Why do you need an additional layer to play devil's advocate in terms of filtered technology to add to the stack in order to get to this experience? Shouldn't we expect the HCM system or the LMS system just to do this already?
You probably would, but I mean, I think one of our examples that we've had earlier on in the year is we loaded one of our catalogs into the system from an integration, and actually what it did was it swamped the outputs. So therefore, because of the amount that we were putting in, we had to take that back out. And what we started to do was then actually loading content in a far more controlled manner to meet what it is. And as I say, I think I'm very clear in the fact that I think there's three parts to this, and I think each part plays a part in it. And you're right, that LMS or EXP does definitely play a part in delivering it. But the old adage around about data in, data out, you've got to improve the quality of what you're putting in. And if what you're just doing is putting everything through it, your outcomes are not going. What we've discovered when we've tried that approach, we've not had the outcomes that we were expecting. It's not being able to filter and use the nuances to filter it down to that personalized experience that we're looking to do. So therefore, having a management of, as I say, the warehouse in the background to make sure that you've got the correct content, also, if I come back into one of the other reasons for having it is at the minute, in our particular case, Workday cannot integrate all of the providers that we've got. So therefore, we're having to, prior to this, we're having to manage assets in different spreadsheets across the system. What you've actually got is one place where everything is, which therefore improves a one-stop shop to be able to look across your content assets. It really does improve the time that your curation, because you go there and start to move around about it. So I think they do different jobs. In short, to the answer, that user experience definitely has a sorting element to it, depending on the needs that both the organisation and the individual has put in. But you do still need to have that asset, which, as I say, manages the warehouse in the background to get that really good personalised content outcome.
So just to play this back to you, it's almost like the content intelligence layer is just that. It's a layer in the stack. So you've got systems that are keeping a record of skills and helping you to prioritize skills as you've managed to do. You've also got content from all over the place. And as per the name filtered, content intelligence is a literal filter to make sure that content isn't just kind of thrown into the system willy-nilly. It's actually controlled. I think this is interesting because it's almost like we have the capability with our digital LMSs and LXPs to have loads and loads of content in ways you could never do with in-person training courses. But yet it's not sufficient, is it? We can't actually present people with hundreds of thousands of choices when they log in, but you need a filter of some kind.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's just intuitively for myself, as I say, I'm going to go back to, and I've referred to this in some of the conversations that we've had around about, in the past I used to previous life, working within retail, we used to relay stores, and ultimately every time you relay a store, you actually 9 times out of 10 reduce the content that's in it. And the number one reply we got back from shoppers when we surveyed them afterwards, you've got more stuff in here even though you've taken 20 to 30% of your stock keeping units
Right.
out. And that principle, I think, comes across into this, which is the more that you put in, even your algorithms are going to struggle to pull things out. So therefore, if you have if you're able to filter what you've got and to feed that into the system, you're going to get a better outcome because it's searching across less. It's going to be quicker, it's going to be more personalized, and it's going to enable your learner to find what they're looking for quickly. And that's got to be the outcome here. Is it's got to be thinking about the learner, thinking about the end in mind. So thinking about that learner is improving that experience, and therefore this shop front that they go to, whether that be your LMS or the XP, you just need to make sure that you have a far more controlled amount of content in there for it to do its magic. And therefore end up with that kind of personalized content as you kind of go across on it.
So it's a little bit like, to use another analogy, if you have a big tidy out in your house and you declutter loads of drawers and shelves and stuff, you suddenly realize you've got all these things that you didn't have. So actually, to give learners that sense of choice and a great experience to find what they want, you've got to remove the clutter in the first place. That's the kind of paradox here. It's not more is more at all. It's definitely less is more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're kind of across that, and I think it has some other advantage to say with everything being in the same place. If you have that one of those great conversations with the business and they come back saying this is the requirement, you can check very quickly what you've got. If I use that analogy, rather than rummaging around in the drawer, missing something and then going and buying it again. It enables you to really understand what you've got, what it meets the needs. Because again, within catalogs, quite often you buy catalogs either for general purposes, or you buy it for if I talk across our catalogs that we've not got enterprise licenses with all those catalogs. What we've got is we've bought it for a couple of particular specific needs that were there. But it enables you to look across those catalogs and go, actually, we may be able to use this for something that we didn't intend because there's content that's in there. And I think one of the things that within our experience over the last 6 months is the methodology, not even within the tool, but the methodology that you guys bring to us around about how to blend the different catalogs that you've got and what that blend looks like. It's been something that's been really valuable across that discussion, and something we're going to go forward in next year to really look at and go, right, how do we do that? Because it's not necessarily just about buying the biggest and the best, it's about blending the different content to get those results.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. We want to talk about outcomes that you've seen so far and things that you might expect from working with Filtered. So I'm just gonna, while we talk about that, just going to pull up another polling question. We have a lot of data on how long this actually takes now from speaking to so many customers. But I won't ruin it by saying what we know about that. Because initially, in this first stage, this first part of working together, we've really been focused on understanding what you have, like getting one view of it, tagging it consistently against those priority skill areas. But then the outcome of that is curation, right? It's essentially, maybe learning pathways is too strong a word, but it's actually organizing things into lists so that you're not overwhelming the Workday system when you're kind of putting stuff in front of learners. Is that about right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it does. So that's start off there, which is one of the things that we discovered is it does make curation so much quicker and so much faster. So again, and also getting to the right content because of the relevance score that the platform gives for each item enables you to do that with a degree of subjectivity that rather than potentially objectivity sometimes it's kind of been in the past. And we reckon it's going to save us around about 20% within those kind of curation times. So therefore, that's an operational effectiveness kind of across that. I've touched earlier on about, I think the benefit also is the methodology that you bring to it in a way that I've not seen even with some of our RFP kind of processes that we've kind of got that. And therefore it's going to be able to, I think, enable us to manage our spend on content more efficiently across what it is. So there's definitely an outcome and connection with that. There are a couple of other things I would just kind of call out because firstly, this doesn't get rid of the need for an L&D and a curriculum team. It just enables them to spend more time on where the value add is and that conversation with the business, and probably takes out, to an extent, probably one of the lower value repeated tasks of just going through, sifting through the content. So that's kind of an advantage. There's a couple of things that we've had discussions about how we work on, is that, you know, you've also got to be aware that an asset could vary. And the tool does enable you to have a look at this, which is, you know, one asset could be a 2-minute, 3-minute video or an article, but it could also be a 13-week, you know, accreditation program. So therefore, you know, it doesn't take that human out of it either, and the fact that you're going to have to look and do some of that kind of critical thinking. But what it does is it kind of rates the content in a way that enables you to do that critical thinking more efficiently and more effectively. And I think, you know, as I said earlier, it links, what we've linked is going to link in to be able to make that user experience better. I mean, I think one of the features that we've enjoyed is the ability to, you know, once you've created the playlist, very quickly just copy it, and you can either send it to an email for your contact with the business to run through, you know, click off to the content, get your feedback on it, or potentially share it on something like a Teams platform or wherever. So there's a very quick and easy way of getting that out, as well as, you know, that connection into, you know, pulling them out and loading into your LMS as well. So there's a couple of different other functions that are there. It's also getting us to think as well around about our skills frameworks. So, you know, in the way that connects. So again, if I go back to that 3-way slide that I had, it's starting us to get us to think around about what are the skills that we want, where it is, and what's kind of usages are going forward. So there's definitely a number. We are quite early, you know, in the journey. You know, it's early this year that we started the proof of concept, and then now moving on to the next occasion. So looking forward to seeing where it takes us in the next 12 months.
Fantastic, yeah. So again, just to play that back, in a team where you have you know, dozens of people involved in this activity of curating, organizing content, responding to requests, you're saving a lot of time in terms of curation. But I think also a lot of what you've described is really about removing all the friction, you know. So now it's easy to make a playlist. It's easy to share it in something like Teams. It's easy to get feedback on it. So it's just actually making those people's lives easier so they can make more of an impact in the business. So it's not really about just, you know, replacing headcount with technology. It's actually about giving teams that I've seen it a lot. They often really manfully struggle against, you know, some of the barriers to like doing these basic things. And it's kind of just freeing those people up so they can actually be more responsive to the business and be more impactful. So I think we're coming to the end of the session now. If we look at our poll results, so I'll push this out again. Typically, Filter does see in general that there's about a 2 to 3 week turnaround to curate a learning pathway. And Marcus, I don't know about you, but I think using content intelligence, it's a lot quicker than that. We generally see about 10 times faster than that. I don't know how you rate it, but I think it's a fair amount quicker. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, and I think I alluded to say, you know, our studies are talking about between, you know, as I say, roughly 20% as you kind of go forward on that. So, you know, your 2 to 3 days as you're kind of saving across there, you know, and improve it. So I think that's a really interesting, you know, poll that kind of highlights the time that it takes to curate and what the opportunity is here to use technology to make that more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just finish off just by sharing one of my tabs, which is if you are interested in looking at the tool or in filtered methodology, then you can just clicking. This is the overall methodology that Marcus has been talking about around prioritizing needs, applying the tech, and then reaching people. And we've included some guides about how you can do that even before you talk to us in the resources area. So please get in touch and we'll be very happy to share. But thank you so much, Marcus, for taking us through this. It's been a really fascinating talk. And yeah, just really grateful for you being able to explain it in such a simple way to our audience today.
Thank you, Toby. It's been great, and good luck, and have a good day to those that are out there.
Thank you to both Toby and Marcus for the enlightening discussion and answering all the questions. It's now time to move to our penultimate session of the day. It will focus on developing learning ecosystems for the future. As always, just click on the link on screen at the end of the session or the next link in your email. I'll see you there.